What four great source clans? What demon clan? All nonsense.
1921. Chapter 1921. Ancient Matters, Mysterious Master. Red Star was extremely angry, his aura like a giant wave, accompanied by endless flames, surging in the starry sky. At this moment, Lin Moyu truly felt that Red Star was a supreme. Although he seemed slightly weaker than Blackstone Supreme, he far surpassed the Saint Venerable. There was actually a supreme who had lived from ancient times to the present. By accidentally entering outer space, he encountered Red Star. Was this fate? After being angry for a while, Red Star finally calmed down. Lin Moyu immediately asked,
Senior Red Star, can you tell me about the ancient times?
Red Star did not refuse, his eyes revealing a hint of nostalgia.
That era was the most prosperous era. Our world, called the Great World, should more accurately be called the Rune Great World. The entire world is actually composed of a supreme and great rune. The Great World rune is also the goal of every cultivator, and it is also the goal of the Black Blood Great World. We were very powerful, conquering one world after another, bringing these worlds under our control, until we encountered the Black Blood Great World.
Red Star began to tell the story of the Great World. He had lived for countless years. Being a star, his lifespan was extremely long, enough to live for tens of billions of years. But he had once encountered a great change, his lifespan drastically shortened, and now he was not far from his end. His tone was filled with the twilight of life, flowing with the passage of time. Through his narration, Lin Moyu roughly understood the once great world and some events that had occurred in it. The once great world was very prosperous, with vast star regions and many strong beings. Countless strong beings conquered other worlds, obtaining the origins of those worlds and integrating them into the Great World. The Great World thus became broader and stronger. A powerful world could have more strong beings, reaching higher peaks. Thus, the Great World became increasingly powerful, conquering more and more worlds. This was a positive cycle, and the Great World would eventually become invincible. Until later, they encountered the Black Blood Great World. The Black Blood Great World was equally powerful. The term,
Great World,
was actually the same as
Great World.
Only a world that reached a certain level could be called a Great World. Worlds like the Tulu World and the Soul Spirit World were not qualified. In the mouth of the Black Blood Great World, the Great World was also called the Rune Great World. The collision of the two great worlds was actually a collision of the strong beings within them. The collision of the two worlds began a brutal war that lasted for tens of thousands of years. This war belonged to the truly strong, with participants at least at the Other Shore Realm. The Other Shore Realm beings were just cannon fodder. The Saint Venerables were the main force, and the true main force was the Supremes. Even stronger than the Supremes were the Heavenly Lords, who were the high-end combat power. Time and again, the collisions and battles caused heavy losses on both sides. Supremes fell one after another, and Heavenly Lords perished. Originally, the Great World had the upper hand and even had the opportunity to counterattack into the Black Blood Great World. If they could occupy the Black Blood Great World and seize its origin, the Great World would undergo a transformation, possibly giving birth to a Tao Lord. But at that time, the worlds that had been conquered by the Great World simultaneously rebelled. They tied up part of the Great World's power, causing the Great World to fall behind. The war became even more brutal. Red Star participated in the war at that time, was severely injured, and almost fell. Later, he left the battlefield and survived until now. Although he was a starry sky beast, he was also a member of the Great World. He once illuminated a huge galaxy, with countless human cultivators practicing under his light and heat. He was a member of the Great World and also a member of the human race. Through his narration, Lin Moyu learned some secrets. The four great source clans did not exist, and the various races did not exist either. In that era, the Great World only had the human race. As for how the four great source clans came to be, Red Star did not know. That was after the ancient era. He had retreated after being severely injured and fell into a deep sleep, sleeping for millions of years. In a million years, times changed and he was in outer space. He felt the world was peaceful, knew the war was over, and went back to sleep. He slept and woke up like this, never asking about worldly matters again. Perhaps the great war of that year had really severely injured him, making him unwilling to move, only wanting to quietly wait for the end of his life. Lin Moyu vaguely felt that there might be some secrets from that year, but Red Star did not say, and he did not ask. Through Red Star's narration, Lin Moyu finally understood all the events of the ancient times. He also knew the origins of the current races. Races like the Demon Clan, Golden Eagle Clan, and Three Silver Clan were actually the beings from the worlds conquered by the Great World. Some worlds' beings were exterminated in the battle with the Black Blood Great World, while some survived and became the current myriad races after the Great War. Many of these races were naturally hostile to the human race, which was understandable. After all, they had been conquered by the human race. It would be strange if they did not hate the human race. But as Red Star said, the human race did not kill the innocent when conquering other races. The human race only needed the origin power of each world to enhance the great world's origin. The human race also gave them a stable living space. In fact, if the human race did not conquer them, they would eventually be conquered by other great worlds. Weakness is the original sin. This phrase applies everywhere. Red Star said,
Back then, the few heavenly lords of the human race were too soft-hearted. If they had exterminated them all, there would have been no rebellion from the various races later. So remember, being soft-hearted to the enemy is being cruel to yourself. Do not have mercy. The greatest evil is mercy.
The greatest evil is mercy. This phrase is heavy, but it has some truth. Lin Moyu firmly remembered this phrase, but he had his own thoughts and subjectivity and would not be influenced by others. Lin Moyu said,
Senior, I have another question. I once saw some undead legions in ancient ruins. And these legions had a master. Do you know who this master is?
Since the first time he entered the mysterious manor, Lin Moyu saw the information about the master in a journal. Later, he saw similar information several times. Combined with his own spells and undead army, Lin Moyu had an indescribable feeling about this mysterious master. He always felt that he seemed to have some connection with that master. Red Star's eyes blinked, and after thinking for a moment, he said,
I have also heard of the master you mentioned. But it is only hearsay. I have never actually seen him. I was also curious once, but unfortunately, there was no answer. Perhaps when you reach the Heavenly Lord level, you will know. Unfortunately, I am only a Supreme, and the weakest Supreme at that. I withdrew from the battlefield too early and am not very clear about what happened later.
Red Star spoke in a low voice, his words somewhat evasive. Lin Moyu felt he might know something but could not say.
Is there a restriction?
Lin Moyu thought to himself, what restriction could make a Supreme keep silent? Was that master so mysterious? In the current world, there were no Supremes, let alone heavenly lords. It seemed this secret could not be unraveled for now. The two chatted for a long time, and Lin Moyu learned more about the ancient times from Red Star. Combined with what he already knew, he roughly understood the changes in the great world over the years. Connecting one event to another, he figured out the evolution of the great world. 1922. Chapter 1922. Traitors should all die. Lin Moyu bid farewell to Red Star, who pointed out the way back for him. For Red Star, even in outer space he would not lose his way, because he could see the divine path, the broken divine path. Lin Moyu invited Red Star to return to the current human race, but Red Star said he had just woken up and hadn't fully recovered, so he couldn't move for now. When he felt like going, he would naturally go. Red Star also told Lin Moyu that he didn't have much time left, and even a small movement would consume a lot of time. Only by maintaining his current state could he live a bit longer. Lin Moyu naturally understood. For a special existence like Red Star, who had been severely injured in the past, being able to live this long was already remarkable. Lin Moyu set off on his journey back, not knowing how far the distance was. Even Red Star didn't know. Red Star could only see the direction of the divine path, but couldn't see the distance clearly. He had forgotten how far he had flown when he left the battlefield years ago. He only remembered that he had fallen into a deep sleep while flying. Lin Moyu could only hope it wasn't too far. The surroundings were vast and pitch black, without a single star in sight. Behind him was the dim light emitted by Red Star, which grew fainter as the distance increased. The surroundings became increasingly dark, and Lin Moyu's body glowed with purple light, becoming the only bright spot. Section 2210/23692211. The purple light couldn't keep up with him and was left far behind, leaving behind dots of light. Step by step, each step covering 150 million kilometers, exceeding the speed of light. His gaze swept through the pitch-black world, his mind churning with Red Star's words. This was outer space, and outer space should be desolate. But in ancient times, outer space was not desolate. There were also stars in outer space, and people lived there, just fewer in number. The people who lived here then were called the people of outer space. Later, when the war between the two worlds broke out, it didn't first affect the human race's core but outer space. Outer space was thoroughly devastated and collapsed. Whether it was collisions at the other shore, Saint Venerable, or Supreme level, they could all shatter the starry sky. Outer space was completely swept clean, and from then on truly became desolate. Later, as the war spread towards the center of the great world, outer space was also completely abandoned. Some people retreated from the battlefield, like Red Star, who could no longer participate in the war, so they retreated to outer space. Outer space was vast, and they were also looking for a new path. According to Red Star, the human race's situation at that time was not optimistic. After the rebellion of various races, the human race retreated step by step, losing large areas of star regions. So the human race made various preparations, seeking a way out for themselves. If they really lost, perhaps they could hide in a corner of outer space and slowly plan their comeback. The human race was strong, and as long as they had enough time, there was a chance. At the same time, many strong beings who were severely injured would also enter outer space. Many of them would die in this vast, dark world, leaving behind their legacies. Perhaps lucky descendants could find their graves. Lin Moyu felt that every step taken by the human race's ancestors had meaning. They often thought 3 steps ahead when taking one step. Before making a decision, they had already thought about the consequences.
The vast outer space is like a graveyard, burying who knows how many years. No wonder so many people enter outer space every year to seek opportunities. Those are all legacies left behind by the human race's ancestors. It's a pity to leave them to those guys. The rebellion of various races, those guys are all traitors.
In Red Star's narration, after the human race conquered various worlds, they actually treated them quite well. They still let them live in their own worlds, didn't interfere with them at all, and would even help them resist dangers. Under the cruel laws of survival, the human race's actions were already extremely benevolent. But unexpectedly, these races launched a rebellion, wanting to exterminate the human race. Even after the Black Blood Great World was repelled, they still didn't give up, trying to eliminate the human race again. They almost succeeded. If it weren't for Xiao Zhantian, the human race would have been gone. If they had really succeeded, it would have been too ridiculous. The human race didn't lose to the Black Blood Great World, but ended up being destroyed by these small fry.
For what has been done, a price must be paid.
Lin Moyu's killing intent rose, and he had already made a decision in his heart. He wouldn't let any of these rebellious races go. After walking for an unknown period, a ball of light suddenly appeared before his eyes. A sound like singing reached his ears.
How can there be singing? This singing seems to contain some kind of rule.
Lin Moyu's heart tightened, and he instantly became alert. As the light approached, it became clearer. When he finally saw the true nature of the light, Lin Moyu couldn't help but frown.
Is this a ship?
A ship, a sailing ship. The sailing ship rose and fell in the pitch-black starry sky, as if on a vast ocean, riding the waves forward. Beneath it, space rolled up waves, rippling out thousands of layers. Lin Moyu's eyes showed shock.
The space law.
What was propelling this sailing ship forward was indeed the space law. Lin Moyu switched to the undead vision but didn't see any souls. There was no one on the ship, and it was unknown what was singing. In such a strange situation, there was only one possibility. That was that the ship had a spirit, a treasure spirit.
Could it be that this is a space-type treasure, and moreover, a space-type treasure that has given birth to a treasure spirit?
Lin Moyu's heart stirred, and he quickly followed. He got closer and closer to the sailing ship, and the space law emanating from the ship became more and more obvious. Lin Moyu felt the space law as if he were looking at the most wonderful thing in the world, unable to tear himself away. Compared to the space law triggered by the wings of the undead, this sailing ship was obviously more attractive. Finally, Lin Moyu came to the front of the sailing ship. The sailing ship wasn't large, less than 10 meters long, just a tiny dot compared to the human race's warships. Lin Moyu reached out his hand, wanting to touch the sailing ship. His hand passed through the sailing ship, unable to touch it at all. It was as if they were in different spaces, visible but untouchable. Lin Moyu tried several times, all with the same result.
It's not here.
Lin Moyu suddenly understood that the sailing ship wasn't here. This was just a projection of it, and no one knew its true location. Not being here meant it couldn't be captured. Lin Moyu could only follow behind the sailing ship, feeling the space law it emanated. The sailing ship seemed to sense that someone was following it, and its song became urgent, its speed increasing. Lin Moyu pursued relentlessly, but the distance between them was rapidly widening. The wings of the undead spread out with a whoosh, and a vast amount of soul power poured into them. The wings of the undead vibrated violently, and a strong space law was born from within. Lin Moyu crashed through the space in front of him, pursuing at an astonishing speed. After using the wings of the undead, Lin Moyu's speed increased at least several times. Tens of millions of miles of starry sky passed in the blink of an eye. He completely disregarded the consumption of soul power, and in an instant, he was behind the sailing ship again. At this moment, the sailing ship accelerated again, getting faster and faster. Lin Moyu pursued with all his might, but the distance between them was still widening. Watching the sailing ship disappear from his sight, Lin Moyu reluctantly put away the wings of the undead. Lin Moyu had lost this chase, losing in the control of the space law. Although the other party was just a treasure, it was clearly stronger than him. Dim light shone from not far away, and Lin Moyu turned his head to see Red Star. He didn't expect that after a chase, he would end up back near Red Star. Red Star's voice sounded.
Little one, why are you back again?
Lin Moyu said.
Junior was chasing a sailing ship and unknowingly returned here.
Red Star chuckled.
Sailing ship, that's the life treasure of the space-breaking Supreme, called the space-breaking boat. It has intelligence, you can't catch up to it.
1923. Chapter 1923. Soul Summoning Song, The Soul Returns. Red Star told Lin Moyu some stories about the space-breaking boat. Its owner was the space-breaking Supreme, one of the few Supremes in the human race who had comprehended the space law. The space-breaking Supreme's combat power was unparalleled among all Supremes. In one great battle, the space-breaking Supreme, with his own strength, fought to the death against a heavenly lord from the Black Blood Great World. For a Supreme to fight a heavenly lord to the death shows how powerful the space-breaking Supreme was. In this battle, the space-breaking Supreme was severely injured and near death. He finally came to outer space and chose to bury himself here. No one knows where he buried himself. Red Star recalled.
About 1,000,000 years ago, when I had just awakened, it appeared. It sang the soul-summoning song, constantly flying through this outer space. Unfortunately, no matter how loud it sang the soul-summoning song, the space-breaking Supreme would not return.
According to Red Star, the soul-summoning song was the most popular song in the human race back then. The soul-summoning song was created by a heavenly lord who was proficient in the soul law. It was said to be able to condense beliefs, gather soul fragments, and resurrect the dead. In that era, there was a saying that after death, the soul would scatter in the world. If the soul could be summoned back, there was a chance to resurrect the dead. However, more people thought it was just the heavenly Lord's way of comforting everyone. But at that time, many people still sang it, preferring to believe it existed rather than not. During the most intense period of the battle, the soul-summoning song was also the loudest. Lin Moyu listened to Red Star's words, carefully savoring the soul-summoning song he had just heard. He vaguely felt a sense of suppression, like a kind of calling, stirring strong emotions in his heart. He hummed for a while according to his memory. His originally calm soul suddenly became somewhat agitated. It seemed that, in some mysterious way, it resonated with certain existences. For a moment, countless voices sounded in his soul's ears. He immediately stopped, and all the voices ceased. Red Star said,
I forgot to tell you, the soul-summoning song must be sung by those above the other shore realm. You're not capable yet.
Lin Moyu had already realized this point. Just trying it briefly had made his soul uneasy. Bidding farewell to Red Star again, Lin Moyu set out on his second journey home. Just from the soul-summoning song, he could feel the intensity of that battle back then. How the human race counterattacked after being suppressed and finally achieved victory. Red Star didn't reveal the details of the battle back then. Many things must have happened at that time. Red Star spoke too generally, but for such things one had to see them personally to have a real feeling. Perhaps everyone's feelings would be different. Lin Moyu thought of that ancient talisman that had once taken him back to that era. If there was an ancient talisman that could take him to see the great battle of ancient times, to see the glory of that time, it would be a wonderful thing. This time, until the light from Red Star behind him completely disappeared and the world fell into total darkness, nothing happened. Lin Moyu walked further and further, the surroundings becoming increasingly silent. There was no sound in the starry sky. Even with his keen soul, he couldn't sense anything. Lin Moyu advanced in the direction Red Star had pointed, each step covering 1.5 million kilometers. He didn't know how long he had been walking or how far he had gone. Even in ancient times, those Supremes couldn't fully explore outer space. Conquering various worlds, sending their origins to the Great World, making the Great World constantly expand and strengthen. For a long time, this outer space was constantly expanding. The Supremes couldn't possibly explore the expanded space in real time. Moreover, absorbing the origins of other worlds would also give rise to some strange things. For example, some star beasts that shouldn't exist in the Great World appeared, as well as some strange dangerous areas. All possibilities existed. It was precisely because of this that, when the war was going badly, the human race decided to let some severely injured Supremes and Saint Venerables retreat to outer space. Indeed, there were some areas that no one knew about. Much of what Red Star said was also hearsay. Because he himself had never entered the deepest parts of outer space, he had only heard about it from other Supremes.
Once there were stars here, even if not many, there were some. But now, this place has become truly desolate.
A group of skeleton generals appeared in the starry sky, scattering in all directions. Lin Moyu would release a group of skeleton generals at regular intervals, letting them explore outer space. When the sense weakened, he would recall the skeleton generals. So far, he had released about 10,000 groups of skeleton generals, each group consisting of 10,000. In other words, there were already 100 million skeleton generals searching in outer space. They searched in all directions, aimlessly but very carefully. If any living beings appeared, they couldn't escape their notice. Unfortunately, after days of searching, there were no discoveries. Even the space-breaking boat that had appeared before didn't show up again. If a Supreme who controlled the space rule chose to bury himself, others simply couldn't find him. Group after group of skeleton generals were sent out. After more than 10 days, the number of skeleton generals in outer space had exceeded 200 million. At this moment, Lin Moyu could faintly see some light, which was the faint white light transmitted back by the skeleton generals. Suddenly, the soul-summoning song sounded in Lin Moyu's ears. He abruptly stopped and looked towards the source of the sound. A coffin was floating there, motionless in the starry sky. The sound was coming from inside the coffin. In a sense, outer space was also the burial ground for ancient powerhouses. It wasn't strange for some coffins to appear. The coffin was less than 10,000 meters away from Lin Moyu, a distance that was practically right in front of him. Lin Moyu vaguely felt that this coffin looked familiar. He thought of the Star-Shattering Supreme. He had personally placed the Star-Shattering Supreme in a coffin. Later, the Star-Shattering Supreme took his coffin and returned to the embrace of the Great World's rune. The Black Stone Supreme also returned in the end, which had once made Lin Moyu believe that all Supremes would return after death. Yet the coffin before him still existed. Did this mean that the owner of this coffin was not a Supreme but a Saint Venerable or even someone at the other shore realm? Besides this, there seemed to be no better explanation. Under the undead vision, there was no living thing in the coffin.
Could it be that even the coffin has gained intelligence?
Lin Moyu approached, and the coffin suddenly lit up. The coffin was densely covered with runes, forming a complex rune array. The lid of the coffin slowly opened, the whole process seeming somewhat eerie. Swords flew out from the coffin, 100 swords in total, their sharp tips pointing at Lin Moyu. Each sword exuded an ancient and primitive aura. They seemed to have been carved by countless years, appearing somewhat broken, yet still sharp. The swords rang out, as if warning Lin Moyu not to come closer. Even the soul-summoning song seemed to become more urgent. Lin Moyu could feel the power of these 100 swords. Each sword could easily kill a peak god venerable. Lin Moyu didn't want to test them with his body. In fact, his best choice now would be to retreat immediately. Suddenly, as if divinely inspired, he began to hum the soul-summoning song. The rhythmic tune flew from his mouth, and his soul heard countless faint voices. It was as if countless people were suddenly speaking around his soul. Lin Moyu endured the sensation and continued to hum the soul-summoning song. Gradually, his voice merged with the faintly heard soul-summoning song.
Soul, return.
A low shout echoed through the starry sky. 1924, 1924.